The wind howled outside the small bus stop as night fell over the sleepy town. Snow drifted down like feathers, covering the cracked road and dim streetlights in a cold, quiet white. The bus station was nearly empty now, except for a young woman and a little boy sitting close together on the wooden bench. She pulled her thin shawl tighter around him, her trembling hands brushing snowflakes from his hair. Her name was Alina. She looked no older than 26, but the shadows beneath her eyes told of sleepless nights and heavy burdens. The little boy beside her, maybe 6 or 7, rested his head on her lap, too tired to speak. His name was Sammy. He was the kind of child who didn't complain even when his lips turned blue from the cold. It had been 3 days since they'd left the city. 3 days since she'd decided she couldn't stay with her husband anymore, not after the shouting, the bruises, the fear. She had packed a small bag, taken Sammy's hand, and left while he was at work. She didn't have a plan, just a mother's instinct that whispered, anywhere but there. But, anywhere, was harder than she'd imagined. The little money she had was almost gone. She'd thought she could reach her cousin's house in the next town, but the last bus had been cancelled due to the storm. Now they were stranded, waiting in a cold shelter with no idea what came next. Sammy stirred and looked up at her. "Mama," he said softly, "I'm hungry." Alina's throat tightened. She reached into her bag, pulled out a half-eaten piece of bread, and gave it to him. "Here, sweetheart, eat slowly." He nodded, breaking the bread in two. "You have some, too." She smiled weakly, shaking her head. "No, I'm not hungry." But her stomach ached with emptiness. As she tucked him closer to her, a bus pulled into the station, its headlights cutting through the snow. A tall man in a dark coat stepped out, his breath visible in the freezing air. He looked around, expecting someone, then sighed when he realized no one was there to meet him. His name was Daniel. He was a mechanic who had returned from visiting his mother in the city. Normally, he'd drive, but his truck had broken down earlier that day, forcing him to take the bus back home. As he stepped under the flickering light of the bus stop, he noticed them, Alina and her boy, sitting silently in the corner. At first, he hesitated. Maybe they were just waiting for someone. But then he saw the way the woman's shoulders shivered uncontrollably, the boy's small hands tucked into her scarf. Something in that picture struck him, something that wouldn't let him walk past. He approached slowly. "Excuse me," he said gently, "are you waiting for someone?" Alina looked up, startled. Her eyes were wide, uncertain. "No, we were supposed to catch a bus, but it's not coming till morning." Daniel glanced at the empty schedule board. "Morning. That's hours away. It's freezing out here." She nodded, forcing a small smile. "We'll be fine. We'll sleep here tonight." The words made him frown. "Sleep here?" She looked away, embarrassed. "We have nowhere else to go. It's just for tonight." Daniel's gaze softened. He didn't want to frighten her, but he could see they were in trouble. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you can't sleep here. It's below freezing. The temperature will drop more by midnight." Her lips trembled. "We'll sleep in the cold tonight," she whispered. Daniel crouched down so his eyes met hers. "Not while I'm here," he said. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. She blinked at him, not sure she'd heard right. He smiled faintly. "Look, my house is just down the street. It's small, but warm. You and your boy can stay the night, no strings attached, I promise." Her heart pounded. Every warning she'd ever been taught screamed not to trust strangers. But then she looked at Sammy, whose hands were turning purple. The boy was shaking, trying to be brave. She didn't have a choice. "Just for tonight," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Just for tonight." He led them down the snowy road. His house was small but cozy, a modest wooden home with smoke rising from the chimney. Inside, the warmth hit them instantly, melting the chill in their bones. Sammy's eyes widened when he saw the fireplace. Daniel hung his coat and gestured toward the couch. "Sit down, I'll get you something hot." He moved quickly, making tea and warming up soup on the stove. When he brought the bowls over, Alina's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't have to." He smiled. "I did." Sammy ate eagerly, his small hands clutching the spoon-like treasure. Watching him, Daniel felt something shift inside him, a quiet ache he hadn't felt in years. His wife had died 5 years ago in a car accident. Since then, his house had been silent, his nights long. He'd learned to live with loneliness, but now, seeing this boy smile, something in him stirred again, something like hope. After dinner, he handed Alina a blanket. You and Sammy can sleep in the guest room. It's warm there. She hesitated. You're kind, but we don't want to bother you. You're not, he said softly. You need rest. That night, as Alina tucked Sammy into bed, she watched his eyes flutter closed, his breathing slow and peaceful. She stood by the window for a while, staring at the falling snow. Her heart ached with gratitude and fear. What if her husband found her? What if this kindness was just temporary? But for the first time in days, she felt safe. Daniel sat in the living room, staring at the fire. He could hear their quiet movements in the next room. Something about that sound, soft, human, alive, brought warmth to a place in his heart he thought was gone forever. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows, glinting off the snow outside. Daniel made breakfast. When Alina stepped into the kitchen, she looked cleaner, calmer, but still unsure. You didn't have to cook for us again, she said softly. I wanted to, he replied. You can stay a bit longer if you need to figure things out. She shook her head. We've already taken too much from you. I can't. He cut her off gently. You haven't taken anything. You and your son just reminded me what kindness feels like again. For a while, they lived quietly together. Just a few days turned into a week. Alina helped around the house, washing dishes, folding laundry, and cooking simple meals. Sammy followed Daniel everywhere, curious about his tools, his garage, his stories. At first, Daniel told himself it was temporary. But as days passed, he realized he didn't want them to leave. The house was alive again, with laughter, footsteps, warmth. One night, as they sat by the fire, Sammy asleep in his lap, Alina looked at Daniel. You've done more for us than anyone ever has. I don't know how to thank you. He smiled. You already have. Her voice trembled. I don't even know if I can ever go back. My husband, he wasn't a kind man. But I can't stay here forever, living off your kindness. Daniel shook his head. You're not living off me. You're healing. Take your time. A silence settled between them, filled with something unspoken, something tender. Weeks turned into months. Alina found a small job at a nearby bakery. Sammy started school. Daniel taught him how to fix bikes, how to fish, how to laugh again. One evening, the boy came home with a handmade card. He gave it to Daniel, grinning. I made this for you. Daniel opened it. In a child's handwriting, it said, "Thank you for making us warm." He felt tears sting his eyes. He looked at Alina, who stood by the door, smiling softly. That night, when the snow fell again outside, Daniel remembered that first night, the cold, the trembling, her whisper, "We'll sleep in the cold tonight." And his answer that changed everything, "Not while I'm here." He hadn't just given them warmth that night. They had given him something greater, purpose, family, love. Years later, the small house still stood by the road. Sammy was taller now, helping Daniel in the garage. Alina was baking bread, humming softly. The stormy night that once brought two strangers together had become a distant memory, but one that shaped everything that followed. Sometimes, when the wind blew and snow covered the world outside, Daniel would glance at the fire and whisper to himself, "No one sleeps in the